Rick, something really interesting happened to me last weekend that I want to talk about with our audience.
Really? What is it, Mark?
So, my lady, whom I love, and I wanted to go out and hang out on a Friday night. I wanted to go to Chili's for the 3 for Me special, but she wanted to go to Texas Roadhouse for the no special, just spend. And guess what? I decided, we compromised, we went to Texas Roadhouse.
That's probably a smart decision in the moment.
In the moment it was, but it got me to thinking. How much does a $150 night cost us in terms of our health and wealth for retirement?
Well, that's an interesting topic.
And that's what we're going to discuss right now.
Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. This is for those who don't just want to retire, but want to live a fun, travel-filled, strong, and decades-long retirement. Your hosts are Rick Collins, the financial expert who'll help you build the wealth you need to retire with confidence, freedom, and zero stress. And Mark Dulaney, also known as the Health Millionaire, who will help you build the health, strength, and mobility to actually enjoy that wealth. Because let's be real, what's the point of financial security if you don't have the health to enjoy it? This podcast is for you if you are about 50 and up, have worked hard, saved smartly, sacrificed, invested wisely, and now want to lock in your future with the health and wealth you need for a great retirement. So listen up, because the best years of your life should be ahead of you, not behind you. In every episode, Mark and Rick break down the health, fitness, and financial strategies you need to create a thriving retirement, one that's strong, mobile, financially secure, and most of all, fun.
Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement podcast. This is episode 31. His name is Rick Collins. He's going to help you create wealth for retirement.
And his name is Mark Dulaney. He's going to help you enjoy better health for the rest of your life.
And together, we're going to help you create health and wealth for retirement. Today, Rick, we're going to talk about what does a night out on the town cost you in terms of your health and wealth for retirement and money in general. What is the true cost of a night out on the town?
I know it's gotten a lot more expensive lately. What used to be a $50 night is now a $100 or $150 night just because of inflation, if nothing else, and those pesky taxes and fees that restaurants have started adding. But what are you getting at? How does it really affect our long-term health and wealth?
So after the dinner, and it was a great dinner, the food at Texas Roadhouse is amazing. And because we don't eat a lot, we actually get leftovers for a second day. But it got me to thinking because we're approaching retirement age, and I started to, for whatever reason, think our bill was $117, which we live in Rochester, New York, where it would be a lot more in Houston, where you live, in New York City and other places. And some people go out and really go extravagant. So I just used $150 as a number and just did some thoughts about, well, that's after tax money, so you'd have to do more taxes. And if people charge it, which we didn't, we paid cash, that's extra. How many hours do you and I have to work for a simple night out on the town?
Well, that's an interesting question. Is it really worth 5 or 6 hours of my time to pay for an hour out on the evening? That's an interesting way to look at it.
When I was sitting there having a dinner and afterwards, because I do a podcast, it made me think, how many hours do we have to work to pay for that 1 hour of fun? That's the question I started thinking about.
When you put it that way, are some of the things I do really worth it? Probably not.
Probably not. And so if you spend $150 to go out to dinner and you figure that if you make $25 an hour, you know what? You got to work 6 hours to pay for that, but that's pre-tax. When you add tax into it, you're probably working more like 8 hours. So is that night on the town, if you make $25 an hour, worth 8 hours?
Do you want to trade a day of your life for an hour of dinner? That's an interesting way to see it.
I know some people, though, are saying to themselves, but Mark, I make $37.50 an hour, or I make $50 an hour. And it still comes down to, if you make $37.50 an hour, you have to work 5.5 hours to pay for that one night of fun. And if you make $50 an hour, you have to work 4 hours to pay for that. Now, Rick, I'm not a big drinker. I don't know if you are, but I know most people have more than one beer like my lady and I had. So 150 is a low night for some people, not to mention children. So what are your thoughts, Rick? How many hours are you willing to work to pay for a night on the town?
I've been blessed to have a decent job, but I still don't want to trade 4 hours of my time to pay for a dinner that would probably be forgotten in a day or two.
So you will forget it unless you have a hangover the next morning, and it will be eliminated from your body within 24 to 36 hours. Everything about that dinner is gone in a day and a half.
Yeah, I have
But you still,
friends that go and will drop $300 or $400 on a dinner. My in-laws are terrible about it. Um, and it just seems so wasteful. And when you put it in the context of how many days somebody would have to work to enjoy or to experience, not even enjoy, to experience a 3 or 4 hour soiree dinner, it sometimes seems kind of pointless and wasteful.
not sometimes, Rick, unless you're making $100 an hour or more, and you're really only using an hour of your work time, it really defeats everything that you're working for. If people wonder why they're struggling financially, take a look at what they spend their money on. Now, I recognize we all need to blow off steam, we all need to have some fun, but more and more restaurants are coming up with meals around 10 to 15 bucks. You don't have to go spend 40 and 50 bucks a meal and do all the drinking. So the immediate element that I want to talk about is time for money trade-off. Is the night on the town worth working a full day in a job you likely don't like? Because the less someone makes per hour, the less they tend to like their job.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Um, and most people, I've seen statistics where most people blow $27 a day just on stuff, Starbucks or fast food or whatever. But yeah, once you put it in context, I've got to work 2 hours for my Starbucks habit. That's really interesting.
And so here's what, so I see it being a terrible cycle. Number one, I'm miserable. I hated my job. I work this job. I hate it every week. So I go out on a night and I spend $100, and then that's after tax money. So I have to really work 6 hours to pay for what I miserable night, which puts me in a hole. So I have to stay in that job I hate. I'm never saving money. I'm never have an alternative plan. My life is I work, I'm miserable at week, I spend money on the weekend so I can do it all over again. And that becomes a person's life.
And if you spend too much money, sometimes you'll volunteer to work overtime just to get more money, so you don't even get an escape from the job you hate.
That's true. And then there's another element of it. Many people who go out like that, they don't actually pay cash or debit, they charge it. And then they get to pay 25% interest a year in addition to the costs. So now
Well, that
that
does
adds
add up, doesn't
another,
it?
that does add up. And so first thing we want to say is this is the short-term impact of entertainment. And we could do the same thing about just watching television at home when you could be studying and learning. But I want people to understand what you do today has an impact more than just the fun you have today. So that's the first part. Rick, that's the first bit of bad news. Do you know what? There's more bad news.
But wait, there's more. Okay, now what's the other shoe that's about to drop?
So if someone were to say to themselves, okay, I'm going to stop spending the money, Mark. I want them to understand just how much they can turn that money into that would really make their lives better. So instead of feeling better by spending money, I want them to make their lives money by investing money. So I'm not the money guy. You are more the money guy, but I did some calculations using AI and calculators, and it only took me 2 weeks to come up with these numbers. So I hope the audience appreciates it. But
Well, I
150,
appreciate the effort. I admire your effort of trying to do some math, and even if you have to use AI, I mean, good for
I
you.
only have 10 fingers and toes, so I got really caught up on it. But $150 a week invested with just a 7% return would be $46,000 in 10 years.
Wow.
It would be $240,000 in 30 years. Now, I'm no genius, but I guarantee you everyone 10 years and 30 years later will be glad, wow, all I did was give up one night out a week out in town. So basically speaking, creating health and wealth for retirement as it relates to money, short-term benefit by not having to work so much or not having to work extra hours or actually putting your money to use, and $240,000 over 30 years if someone's 30 years old, that's a pretty good start to a retirement.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it that perspective. One night a week could make up six-figure income in my future, or one night a month, really, right? Was it one night a week or one night a month?
One night a week. One night a week.
One night a week could add up to six figures. I'd much rather enjoy, having a couple $100,000 in my retirement trust fund or my retirement bank account, to enjoy life when I don't have to worry about working anymore. I could enjoy life a lot more with an extra $200,000 versus not having that because I blew $150 a week on entertainment that I've long since forgotten.
And I really think it also, so let's talk about the impact of health. Typical night out, you spend $100 for food, you drink the alcohol. It does three things to your body. It fattens you up. You have a poor sleep that night, and you have the alcohol load. And when you look at all of it, there's weight gain, there's inflammation, there's reduced recovery. Some people have to go to work the next day, and now they're not performing as well. There's just so many things to being able to be self-entertained as opposed to needing the external entertainment.
Now, Mark, I don't think you're telling people. I don't think we need to, tell people, hey, don't ever go have fun, don't ever go splurge and have a blast. But it's important to realize that these incremental changes or that you could make, maybe do a little less every now and then. Instead of 3 drinks, have 2. They do add up over time and have less stress on your body and less stress on your wallet. Just because at some point your body's going to get wore out. And, I'm diabetic, so I wore out my pancreas because of an illness, not from overuse. But, people get in their 40s and 50s and get fatty liver disease or cirrhosis because they've drank every week for all their lives. Things like that really do make an impact that in the immediate reference you don't see, but over long term you're doing some minor damage along the way that does add up to a lot of problems down the road, health and wealth.
I also think that if you need to go out and party, quote, every week, and I get it when you're in your 20s, you're just feeling yourself out. But the idea is, do I need this? What's wrong with my life that I need that level of stimulation every week to blow off steam or whatever, especially for a 40 and 50-year-old? I just think it becomes a thing where it actually costs you way more than you think. And all I want to do is create that awareness of how expensive one night a week on the town can be, depending on your income. Now, if they make $1 million a year like you, Rick, then that's different.
That's funny.
Yeah. So save the partying when you have a reason to party because you have all this extra money. Don't do it while you're trying to build wealth and prepare for retirement. That's the message we want to give you today.
I actually ran some numbers myself, and different numbers, but just $100 a month. And the reason I bring this up is the later you wait to start improving your health and wealth, the more it's going to take to have a good outcome, or the less results you're going to see. If somebody saves $100 a month, starting at age 30 to age 65, they'll have saved $42,000. So that's 420 $100 nights. But they'll have $210,000 in their bank account. If they wait till age 40 to start saving $100 a month, they'll wind up with $91,000. If they wait till the age 50, they'll have $34,000 in the bank when they turn 65. So my message is start early, because compound interest and saving and actually increasing the discipline you have of that $100 a month or that extra walk or that extra, set of lifting weights at the gym, that compounds over time, and the compound difference of that minor change will make a huge change down the road when you really will appreciate it more. So start early and do it often.
So we've given a lot of numbers, or I've given a lot of numbers, and here's the thing. There's two things you can do with your time, your money, and your calories. You can spend them. And when you spend them, there's things that it costs you. It costs you interest if you're borrowing the money. It costs you energy, and it costs you time that you could use to make yourself better. Or you can invest the money and earn interest, learn something, and prepare for a great retirement. It's like the whole thing is, am I spending my time, my money, and my calories, or am I investing them to create the future that I want? And what's interesting is the people who need to do the saving and investing the most are the ones who are at those restaurants, nightclubs, and other places spending their money without giving any thought to what it's going to cost them in the future.
Yeah, a lot of times people get hung up with feeling invincible, or I'll save more or exercise more later. I'm going to live for now, not in the future. And they think they've got time. And, to some extent they do have time to make up for lost time. But at some point, the hole you've dug is so deep that getting out is going to take gargantuan level of effort just to get back to where you could be if you'd done a little bit along the way.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of what we're trying to say. Don't spend, invest for your health and your wealth and in your relationships for retirement. Now, Rick, speaking of investing in relationships for retirement, you promised the audience that you would tell us how it went with your wife with the stuff that she bought and had delivered for you last week.
My wife is a true blessing. She was bored and ordered a bunch of planters and plants, an herb garden. The planters are still in the box, but she actually overheard me last week talking about this, and she's like, "So, are you going to challenge me about my planters?" And I'm like, "No, honey, I want you to be happy. If this is a hobby that interests you, I want to support you. Let me know how I can help you. Do you need me to do anything to help set up this herb garden?" And she said, "No, it's fine. I'll take care of it." But I chose to invest in my relationship by not challenging, complaining, griping about what I thought was wasted money. So yeah, it's important to make choices along the way. For all the guys out there, pick your battles. Don't I'm not gonna die on the hit. I'm not gonna die on that hill. So pick your battles to have important conversations about things that are really important. If it's not going to make a difference 5 minutes or 5 months or 5 years from now, I am not going to get upset about it.
That's a smart man, Rick. I wish I had learned that 2 marriages ago.
I learned that the hard way, so don't do as I do, do as I say.
So, Rick, I think we're going to give our audience like 8 minutes of their lives back. I think that if they got what we tried to convince them of, that a night out on the town costs you way more than you might ever have thought. And that's what we wanted to show for today. How do you think we did, Rick?
Yeah, I think it's important. I really think it hit home with me when I start thinking about how many hours of a day I've got to work to go do something that's fun, and is it worth it? And I hope our listeners got that too, of there's trade-offs. You're trading time for dollars. You're trading your life for stuff or a fun night out. So make sure it's worth it before you go and have that big blowout party every week.
Yeah, and I see tables where, a family might have 3 kids and they all want something and they decide to bring a friend along. So the bill ends up being $200, $250. We didn't do math on that. And all we're saying is it's your money you're working for. How about making sure you're working for what you really want, not just what you short time think you want?
That's deep.
Yeah, well, once in a while, Rick, I come up with something deep, but I think it's our caring. We want people to prepare for retirement because everybody wants to live to be old and not have to work. But what we don't realize is most people, when they stop working, are dependent on Social Security, which is why there's a lot of really old school bus drivers, greeters at Walmart, and many other professions that people don't want to do. And
Yeah,
the
nobody
reason,
wants to work at Walmart when they're 80 years old, but they're in a position where they don't have a choice because they didn't prepare for retirement early on.
so one week we are doing an episode on the myths of Social Security because people think Social Security is the solution. Social Security is the government solution. It's not your solution.
We ought to talk about that because it's definitely not the end all be all people think it is.
It is not. But Rick, if someone wants to talk to you, how do they get a hold of you?
You can go to our website, creatinghealthandwealthforretirement.com, or go to my landing page. It's bankingforyourself.com. That's FOR, bankingforyourself.com. What about you, Mark?
Creatinghealthandwealthforretirement.com. I am going through a process of kind of updating my business and what I do, and I'm working on it. I should have more details next week. But the bottom line is, I'm still here to help you create health for retirement, and Rick's here to help you create wealth for retirement. And the three of us together can make you wealthy, healthy, and wise. Say goodbye, Rick.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks for listening. Come back next week. We're going to have more in-depth conversation. Maybe next week we'll talk about the myths of Social Security. You never know. Tune in and find out.
And so I think I left Rick speechless there because I said my thing and he just went silent. You folks have a great week. We'll see you same bat time, same bat channel.